Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mills and I make videos about living in the Dominican Republic. Today I wanted to do a little video about my first week in the Dominican Republic. Something like really scary happened and I'm going to tell you about it, a little like story time. If you like my videos, if you can hit subscribe really quickly, that helps me so much. If you want to give a thumbs up or comment, that's awesome too. I love hearing your guys' thoughts and comments on my videos, as long as you guys don't roast me. So before I begin, I did quickly want to tell you about a program that I was told about. I get a lot of comments asking how I learned Spanish, how you can learn Spanish, if you need to learn Spanish to live in the Dominican Republic, and I think it's very important. A lot of people do speak English depending on what area you're in and you know, how touristy it is and whatnot, but I just think speaking Spanish it really like brings your experience to a ton, like a whole new level. There is a business called Sumergidoesp, and the owner, Lawrence, and I talked. He gave me a free lesson, which was cool. It's basically you sign up. Every class is $10, no matter if you're a beginner or a higher level of Spanish speaking ability. And the first 30 minutes of class, you do kind of like a quick grammar lesson with a native Spanish speaker, and you go over kind of more rules and getting into a little bit of the nitty-gritty, and then the second half you have a conversation with another native Spanish speaker. So I did the grammar portion with a Colombian and he was awesome, and you can see his video, and he has a whiteboard and he can show you things, which is very helpful. And then the second half I spoke with a Dominican lady, which was cool to kind of like practice my skills, because also, if you know, like speaking Spanish on the phone is way harder than speaking in person. So if you can do that, you'll be great when you come to the country. So I am linking everything below. Check it out. Tell Lawrence that I sent you. It's an awesome business. It's great for anyone who is in the States, elsewhere, Canada, Europe, wherever, or even in the DR already, and you just don't have like a tutor in your town that you feel comfortable with. I moved to the Dominican Republic July 27th, 2017, got it. And then I lived in Jarabacoa for a year, if you remember, and I've lived in Santiago de los Caballeros for another year. As you know, most of you, if you see my other videos, I am engaged to a Dominican. We met in the Dominican Republic. I knew him before through a friend, so we were kind of talking like before I moved there. We met the first week that I moved to the Dominican Republic. So I went to Santiago to hang out with him and kind of see the city a little bit more, which I have seen it before, but not in like, wow, I live here now type of way. So I took the two guaguas there. I was so nervous. Oh my gosh, I like got all cute and whatnot. But since we had already been talking for a couple months, I did feel comfortable with him, and I knew like he would be, if nothing else, like a really good friend. So I met him. Seriously, guys, the second he came around the corner, I was like, that's it. Like literally love at first sight, which I didn't know was a thing. So yeah, we hung out all day. We went to the monument. It was awesome. We got along amazingly. I seriously can't even say enough good things about that day or what it was like meeting him and hanging out and seeing more of Santiago and whatnot. Also, who likes my shirt? So he asked me, do you want to go to the beach? His friend called him and he was like, it was like evening already at this point. We're still in Santiago. He was like, do you want to go to Cabarete for the night? And I was like, sure. Like, I've been to Cabarete before. I love it. And you know, I was like, whatever, more spontaneous. I'm like, sure, let's go to the beach. I don't know. I just moved here. I want to do everything. So his friend didn't end up picking us up until like 7:38, which we'll get to that. But I just met him for the first time. I met his friend for the first time. We leave in his friend's car, which is a small 4-door white car. I forget like the brand or whatever, the model, but it was really small. It's one of those ones like the seats are like really, really close in the back row. So we're driving. Cabarete is like 2 hours from Santiago, and it's already dark at this point because 7:30, and his friend wanted to see a girl at a resort in Puerto Plata. So I think somewhere in the drive he decided, okay, we're going to go to Puerto Plata and hang out with these people for a little bit, and then I'm going to take Mills and Chris to Cabarete, and then I want to drive back to Puerto Plata. I wanted to like hang out with them for a little bit, so we did. You know, it was fine. Like I didn't know any of these people, but we just went to the resort and like sat around the pool for a little bit. It was fine. 11, like it was late, and he was like, all right. I'm like, all right, are we going to Cabarete or like what's happening? So finally we go to Cabarete. He was driving really, really fast, which a lot of Dominicans drive fast. If you've driven in the Dominican Republic, or if you know, have been in a car in the DR or seen them, people just drive really fast, especially like on the highways or kind of not as crowded roads. It's crazy. So it's night. He stopped to get like hookah on the way, like a vape pen, whatever. And it's the one that does like a lot of smoke. So he's like vaping in the car. There's smoke everywhere in the car. Blasting music. He's texting while he's driving really fast. And I like had just met him. So and if you know me, you know I'm like not confrontational at all. So I was just internally like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. Like my stomach hurt so badly. It was just in knots. I was like, I just have such a bad feeling, like, you know, but whatever, because I've been to the DR like 8 times before, and people always drive like this. I've been in cars, you know, where people were like drinking and driving, and like guaguas that are crazy, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, all right, Mills, you're being like overly anxious, story of my life, calm down, blah, blah, whatever. So we're driving. We like stopped to get something. Chris got in the back seat with me so we could like talk more because the music was so loud. And I was like, you know, shy, so I didn't want to like scream in front of his friend. So yeah, it was at this point, it's like 11:30, 12. It was so late. I'm like laying against the window because I'm like, all right, I came to Santiago early this morning. Let me just rest before I go to Cabarete. All of a sudden, like, I hear, we're like, you know, he's like passing cars. Here, just the first thing I heard was tires like screeching, spinning out. I like immediately sit up because it sounded way too close to us, and I was like, oh, that's our car. And then we start like spinning, like we're in this lane and we end up completely in the other lane this way, and we hit the curb. So the hit wasn't even that hard, you know, like the jolt, like you go forward and stuff, kind of hard, but the hit, it wasn't like a massive crash, thank goodness. But the driver, his friend, was obviously like, what just happened, right? And I was freaking out because we crashed the car, and that sound of tires like whew, and spinning. So we get out of the car right away, right, to see kind of what happened. And his friend's out. His friend looks at the front of the car, and it's completely in. Like the whole front of the car is wrecked, basically. And literally, thank God, because there was a curb that stopped us, but behind the curb was a massive brick wall. So if we hadn't hit the curb, we would have hit the wall like head on. So that we got very lucky there. Then we hear like screaming, and I was like, oh no, like we hit someone. So we kind of like look over to the left. Remember, it's like 12:31 a.m. something. It was super late. So you can't really see really well. We were like in a really, really dark area. We were actually like going around a curve and see like a group of motos. So I'm like, uh-oh. And the person screaming ended up being this girl. She was like 16 years old. She's like screaming, crying. And I was really, at that moment, I was like, what happened? You know? So I go over there and there's like already a group of people because they were with them. So I was like kind of nervous to go over there. But obviously you hear someone screaming, you're going to go see what happened. And she's like on the ground, kind of not in a ditch, but like there was grass and she's like on the grass and she's holding her leg. And then I saw like the whole, like her Achilles heel basically looked like it was like split, and you could see like bone on her foot, and the heel was like kind of cut. It looked, I mean, it looked like it really hurt, obviously. I was so glad to see that it was, I don't want to say just her foot, because it looked like it was broken and it was bleeding and stuff. Like it was bleeding a lot. But I was so, like, I was happy, kind of like relieved. I was relieved to see it wasn't something like her chest or, you know, something like went through her or she was conscious, you know. And then we saw a guy who had a cut on his ankle and he was like kind of bleeding a lot, who was the driver. So there, you know, actually the driver was really calm, just like banged up. The girl was the one who was screaming because she got hurt and she's 16 and she got thrown off the moto. Understandable, right? So they were driving, instead of like in a line of motos, they were driving across the road. So they were in our lane. But our friend was driving way too fast also. So he didn't have time to like react to that. And they didn't have their lights on either, coming around the corner in our lane, us like driving too fast. So it was bad. And if you've been in an accident in the DR, or if you've seen one, hopefully you don't ever get in one. There is a crowd that forms around the accident immediately. And we're in like not the middle of nowhere, but we're like on a nothing road between Cabarete and Puerto Plata. And, there were like 60 people there within like 2 minutes. And these were not people that you wanted to, come to your rescue, because that's definitely not what they were doing. They were definitely like very tigre, like scary. Chris like took off his rings. I like had a skirt on and I like went in the car and put leggings on. I had to get my backpack and he got his stuff, and we like kind of stood on the other side of the car because obviously they were like freaking out. That girl was local, so we're not, especially me, like right away. Good thing I wasn't driving, even though I wouldn't have driven like that. There's just so many people trying to help, but also they take videos of everything. Like they're videoing our friend's car, they're videoing her on the ground crying. They were all drinking, they all had like vodka bottles, and like they were just like that type that you don't want to mess with. So we were like kind of staying back. This like German guy showed up in a car and he had a first aid kit. So he ran up and started helping the girl, which is good. 911 came, and then the police came, and they started, like the local police, because every town like has a station. They started like questioning our friend and everything that happened and like whose fault it was and this and that. Whew. So then the girl gets taken away in the ambulance, and we at that point like hadn't been near her because this whole group of people came, obviously. And you get it, I don't know if you know accidents there, you get it, like you don't want to be in that right now, you know, because they're pissed off and drunk, and like, you know, there's this girl that's hurt. So we were like kind of staying back. After it happened, I was like way worse. I was shaking. And then the girl's mom pulls up on a moto, and her daughter had already left, and most of the crowd had already left because, you know, like the drama was over. And her mom starts screaming. I started crying because I felt so badly that her daughter was hurt. And I went up and I said like something really quickly, but I didn't want to like start a whole thing, because obviously I had just gotten to the country the week before, and you need to like learn a little bit more, become a little bit more street smart to, handle that situation, right? And like, since I was like American, I wanted to be away, but I did feel really bad and was like crying because the mom was so nervous. At that point, I really think that she thought her daughter died, because it's so common there to get in moto accidents. But luckily, like, one of the police officers was there and told her like she's fine, she just cut her foot open, like she'll probably need surgery, but she's going to be okay. We ended up going to the police station. They took us there, and his friend was in there for like an hour, and it ended up being like we were close enough to Puerto Plata. At that point, we hadn't even gotten far, that the girl, her friend, and her parents came, met us at the police station. Remember, we did not know these people except him. The dad's like in there trying to help. We're just like sitting on the street. It was just a mess. It was like honestly like scary where we were. They're like interrogating him, basically trying to figure out what happened. They made him pay. He had to pay her hospital bill, which is not like it's not like the norm. Like, every situation is like that. I hope that you are all safer than I was. I'm sure a lot of you, if you live in the DR, you've been in accidents before, or obviously seen them. I have seen way too many accidents since I've lived here, just really, really bad ones. Like, I've literally seen people die. I've seen a teenage boy like crossing the street, get hit by a moto, and he died. Like, it's super sad, and you really, really need to be cautious. So that's my warning, I guess. Just really be careful when you're driving. Not to be like scaring anyone, but I just wanted to like tell that story about how my first week in the DR was. And driving's no joke here, and the accidents really attract a lot of people really quickly, and they are often a much more tragic ending than the one that we had, luckily. So yeah. All right, thank you for watching. As always, comment below any other videos you would like me to do. It doesn't have to be DR related. I would actually like to do a couple videos that are either just about me or Arizona or my life. If you have any ideas, I know you don't know me that well, but anything you would like me to talk about or do a video about that you're interested in, comment that below, because I would love to try it out and do some other stuff too. If you feel like it, go ahead and hit subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.